Tell everybody that you're sick again, because they really need to hear it, and you need the sympathy.
Well, Scott,
They don't need to hear it, but you need them to hear it.
I don't want to just tell everybody that I'm sick. I want them to see all of my data from my vitals tracker, okay? And that my heart rate variability is low and my skin temperature is elevated. So, what happened yesterday was so just for a little bit of background, just for anyone who doesn't know, Stephen A. Smith has been like incredibly critical of LeBron and of the situation with Bronny. As have we. We've been pretty critical of that situation. But Stephen A. Smith, one of the biggest voices in sports in the world, and he has come at like LeBron kind of even from the fatherhood angle. And maybe we'll play some of these clips in a little bit. But for those just listening, LeBron confronted Stephen A. Smith at the game last night, courtside, and this clip is going incredibly viral around X and around the internet. But Stephen A, just like 30 minutes ago, right before recording, he responds to this on Twitter, on X, and said, "Hey, I didn't want to address this. I wasn't going to, but since this video is now going around viral, I have to address it. I'm going to on the show tonight." And LeBron has kind of given Stephen A exactly what he wants right here. Now, Scott, what you've just thrown up right here, and we don't have to watch the whole thing, maybe just the first 1 minute. This is an example of Stephen A. This is on his actual podcast, and he's criticizing Bronny in the situation. And while criticizing him, they are playing Bronny lowlights on his game, his minutes versus the 76ers. So like his bad plays, his missed shots right here. You see him driving and getting swatted. And so Stephen A playing this like really hammering the Bronny James situation and being incredibly tough on him. So these are the type. This is just an example of kind of how hard Stephen A goes at him. But like we said, on one hand, I respect LeBron as a father for coming to the defense of Stephen A. I mean, Scott, you're a dad. I mean, wouldn't you have the same type of emotional reaction?
Oh, yeah. I think Stephen A does have some credence in talking about, like, look, LeBron, your boy is in the NBA. You got him into the grown man's league. Like, at a certain point, you have to take a step back from defending him in that way. I mean, you're always his father, sure, but he's now among men competing in a men's league again. So like criticism going toward your son isn't necessarily directed at him as a person or a personal attack. It's strictly, dude, this guy might not belong here. And the reason he is here is probably because of other factors outside of gameplay. So it's honestly a genuine criticism. And Stephen A might be right here in that LeBron's reaction is a bit over the top. But I get it. Like protecting your child is number one. And sometimes parents do that over the top and sometimes they do it correctly. So
Stephen A. Smith being a talking head is, typically a cowardly position in life because you can just say all this stuff and never face anybody. But he stands his ground and he faces LeBron and he stands by what he says in person, in reality, face to face. So I do like that about Stephen A.
We are the cowardly talking heads behind the screen. We won't face anybody in real life. Stephen A came to Georgetown while I was there, while I was a student there, and he gave like a talk. And I actually remember, this is what, 12 years ago? Yeah, Mike, we're that old. And I remember Stephen, I mean, he really left an impression. There was a few of those talks that like came through Georgetown for kind of like these celebrities. I remember he being the most impactful one that I went to, because he does have, I mean, he is a really great communicator, and he does have, strong ideas that are interesting. Do you see also he's like polling at one of the top 5 or 7 possible Democratic candidates for 2028, the presidential election?
Yeah, that's a sad state of affairs for one side of the aisle if that's the case. But I got to give it to him. You guys are right. He is a wildly professional orator, and he has a way with words that's very sharp. He can sling them at a moment's notice, and he's very good at articulating his ideas, his stances, and he's not afraid to back them up. So there is an element of I've been directing most of my criticism toward LeBron and the reaction, to a certain extent, but at the same time, like I do respect the fact that Stephen A isn't cowering. Like it,
right.
That's an important part of, if you're going to say it, mean it.
Right, exactly, and you can tell right here, like he's facing him right here, even though he's substantially shorter and looks a little puny on the court right there. But it looks like he's like standing his ground with what he has said. Excuse me. But like I said, on one hand, I respect LeBron coming from this perspective, and I understand it as a father. Not that I'm a father, but
Hey,
hold
you
on.
just want to tell me?
Yeah.
On one hand, I do understand LeBron coming at this from the father perspective and like defending his child. On the
Yeah.
other hand, he had to expect this to some degree. Like LeBron's been in the spotlight for 25 years since he was like 15 years old. So he understands the media landscape. And
Yeah.
he was the one who was pushing so hard to get his son into the NBA and on the Lakers at that, when most people with a brain understood, okay, this is not reality. It's a fun little memorable moment for LeBron and Bronny to be on the team together, but he's not actually good enough to be there. And LeBron had to know that, or has to know that deep down. And so I don't know what he expected. He thought that everyone would just relish in this moment over and over again and celebrate it. I mean, some people are going to be critical of this egregious act of nepotism. So he
Yeah.
had to expect that to some degree or at some level.
Yeah. It's one thing for like talking heads like us to say something negative toward LeBron. Like that's literally just a drop in the ocean for him. He doesn't care. But it coming from Stephen A and then it being directed toward his son, I think might have been a boiling point for LeBron, one step too many. Not to the degree of like Will Smith going and slapping Chris Rock, but this is like a close version of that.
Well, that was the worst, the worst scenario ever. Will Smith doing that. But you got to respect a little bit.
There are a lot of parallels between Will Smith and Jaden Smith and LeBron and Bronny, don't you think?
You know what? You might be right. You might be onto something there. No, I think the Jameses are way more likable than the Smiths. I would take them over the Smiths for sure. Jaden Smith, that kid is like, he's weird, man. He's a weird guy. Man, Bronny, he's a nice guy.
Okay, do you think that the nepotism in Hollywood, like plugging your son into a starring role versus the nepotism of just plugging your son into a professional league, which is worse?
Ooh. See, this is a good question because we've seen a lot of this in Hollywood, of children of directors or producers getting these starring roles way too early, or when they don't have the credibility or really the acting chops to land them. Excuse me. I think you laughing at my voice wavering, Scott? I'm out here grinding.
Thought you were about to start crying there.
I just get really
emotional topic
about Will Smith. Will and Jaden Smith. I always tear up. Just love him so much. I think the Hollywood one is worse because I think there's more people who are capable to be competent in a movie than competent on a professional basketball court. Now, that's not to say that Bronny deserves necessarily to be on the NBA basketball courts, but he is still way, way, way better than most people, like substantially, bar none. Whereas some of these celebrity children who get these starring roles, it's like this kid is a terrible actor. This is like a very, very bad example of acting. So I think those examples are more egregious. What do you think?
I would take the other side of it. I think because sports is such a merit-based skill that's quite objective. You're either one of the best or you're not. And if you're not, you're essentially weeded out very, very quickly, or you don't even get the opportunity, right? So I think slotting or utilizing your power and influence to get somebody into a certain position on a sports team is probably more egregious than the acting. Well, I don't think the acting realm isn't egregious. I think that's absurd the way that things go about that way, but it's a little easier to kind of hide the because acting is a little bit subjective, and you can hide behind, oh, this is just the character I was playing, and not because of my capabilities. Like the character is just lame, not my acting skills.
I was playing a character that's bad at acting.
Just bad at being a person.
Perfect. Okay, that's actually a very fair point. I mean, like with sports, it's either you are good enough or not. with Hollywood, you can have all these kind of artsy interpretations of actually that's a great performance if you look at it from this way. And it's like this is all that nonsense that I had to deal with in film school, which is part of the reason why I left
Oh,
LA. But okay, I think that's a fair point. Mike, what do you think? Which is more disgusting?
I agree with Scott. I think, like you're saying, the interpretation of a film performance is so subjective. I don't really. How do you tell if someone's a bad actor? I don't know how to tell. I just watched the movie. It's so hard.
Mikey,
But
this is so funny.
and then, but I like sports is objective. Like, okay, that guy does not belong on the court. That guy can't hold his own. But it's even you see it right away.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you don't try to interpret a quarterback's performance and be like, "Oh, he went 7 for 25 with 3 picks," but I actually interpret it as a good performance.
Yeah,
No, Mikey's favorite actor, Scott, growing up is it's Adam Sandler. He loves Adam Sandler movies. They're his favorite. He can't wait for Happy Gilmore 2. And but I think
that's the best kind of movie. Just when people they half-ass making it. There's no pressure. I don't go in expecting a great movie. I just know I'll be pleasant. This is going to be a pleasant 2 hours, and
yeah,
that's it. I'm not going to come out of there disappointed. Like, man, I was really expecting something more. No, you get exactly what you're hoping for. Maybe a couple chuckles, and you're entertained. That's the kind
that
of movie I like.
that's true. There is something to be said for that. Okay. So, I mean, I think I'm kind of with you guys. You guys have kind of convinced me. Sticking with basketball though, we got to talk about the Warriors. So, like, if you look at the numbers before they did the Jimmy Butler trade, Steph was averaging like 22 points. Now he's averaging like 30, 31 points per game. And just last night, they came back from a 22-point deficit against the Nets. And check out this shot, this damn near half court shot at the halftime
jeez.
buzzer that Steph hits. But I wanted to bring this up, like, of course, this game and this comeback, but the Warriors in general, since that Jimmy Butler trade, what do you think it is about getting a guy like Jimmy Butler that has sparked this team to perform in a completely different way?
I mean, Jimmy Butler is one of the better players in the NBA, especially when he puts in the effort. Like he is bar none top 10 dude. And he's proven it on lesser teams many times, just taking the Heat to where they were in prominence. Obviously that ended in quite the debacle and that was a train wreck. But like, I think infusing a guy with just that sort of mentality, I get the sense that Jimmy is also somewhat cut from the cloth of the old school Kobe's MJ, like in terms of his approach and his attack mentality. So I think just infusing another guy like that into a locker room that has the culture of the Golden State Warriors is always going to be a massive benefit. Now, time will tell how that relationship sort of jives because we've seen megastars join up with the with the Warriors before and things devolve. But I also think that the individuals matter greatly in their mindset. I think ultimately the real linchpin as to how things kind of go in the locker room, I think we're all very much aware that it matters how you jive with a certain individual, number 23 on the Warriors. And that's going to be the biggest tell.
That also just it is sort of like an energy spark for them. It also allows Steph to kind of, play off ball more. I mean, Butler is so good at like getting to the basket. I mean, I already saw he's like 5th on the Warriors in free throws attempted for the season, and he's been with them for 10 or 11 games. So like this dude gets to the basket, he penetrates, and he's able to dish it out to Steph, who does what he does best is shoot. And here's the stats from Steph over the last 5 games. Damn, 56, 44, like really having a resurgence in this back half of the season here. It's interesting to see how a player that comes onto a team can totally change the vibe and sort of the direction of the team. It's also like Luka to the Lakers. Like that's been so good for LeBron. Luka himself hasn't necessarily been putting up crazy numbers, but LeBron, since Luka has gotten there, has really skyrocketed. I think we have some of LeBron's numbers. Maybe not. Maybe I'll pull them up in a second. But since Luka came here, and it's a similar scenario.
Like I think when you get another elite player on a team like that, everyone's competing to maintain the top dog position and kind of prove that this is my team a little bit, so subconsciously that leaks in. So like Scott was saying, sometimes when you get these powerhouse, like superstar teams together, short term, it's great. There's a huge boost because everyone's competing, amongst each other, and it's good. And then as they settle in, then the cracks start to show, and the egos come because
Yeah.
maybe they
Oh,
lost their top dog spot or whatever. But at first, it's the hope of, okay, we have all these guys, we can take it all away, we can get a title. And then once they start losing the amount of tension they had before or whatever, then those cracks start showing. They go, I need this guy out, whatever.
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, so Scott, do you think then that this is going to be short lived?
Dude, just because I know just in the way they approach things in the media and on their previous teams, or specifically Jimmy, I don't have high hopes that him and Draymond are going to jive very well because they're very, very similar.
Really? Okay. All right. We'll revisit this. Both of you guys predicting the downfall of the Warriors, that these egos aren't going to be able to get along. I kind of like it. I don't know. I mean, I know what you mean with the Draymond situation, but I like Steph and Jimmy Butler together. I think they complement each other really, really well. Also, Jimmy Butler has like a crazy assist to turnover ratio. It's something like
Yeah.
49 to 10, like something ridiculous. Like he just creates opportunities, and we're seeing Steph thrive in that. Also, why do we never really we never talk about Steph's longevity in the way that we talk about LeBron's? Like Steph is 37, but
Yeah.
we're always just talking about LeBron's longevity. Steph's
That's
an old man.
because Steph looks so young. He's so much more youthful. LeBron, you can see him aging. He's balding. That's getting some gray in his beard.
True.
And Steph just looks. He's got the baby face.
It's
Steph always looks like he's 20.
There's even, yeah, I would say in addition to the optics, it's almost as though you see LeBron probably taking a few more plays off than he normally would in his younger years. Like you see him, he does things in spurts. And when he does them in spurts, it's like he's still top notch, obviously. But with Steph, there's been such a high load placed on his shoulders, and he still is out there like doing the same ridiculous stuff over and over again that he was doing 10 years ago. And so it's like, it's almost as though age hasn't quite touched him. And I think that's also a product of the style of player he is. I mean,
Right.
he's relied his entire career on his ability to shoot the ball very quickly and get it out of his hands as quickly as possible and be just like a sniper from anywhere on the court. And I think that sort of gameplay just lends toward having stupid longevity, because you can, if you're a shooter, you can shoot until, I don't know, I mean, until you croak. I mean, honestly.
Still
So
your crow.
yeah. So like I would actually be curious to see like when Steph actually decides to hang it up. I think that's why this is going to be a huge benefit that he gets Jimmy, even though Jimmy's not a spring chicken. Just because it takes off some of that load and pressure on Steph to always go out there and be the one performing. Like he can start taking some plays off or taking longer breaks if they have a high caliber guy like Jimmy out there on the court.
Yeah. I mean, being a shooter, it's like a golf swing. I mean, you can do it until you're 70. It's just like
Yeah.
if that's your primary game, yeah, you'll be able to do that for a long time. Just keep that elbow rested. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to get
And in light of good old Chuck Barkley taking shots at ESPN for only talking about the Warriors and the Lakers at all times, we're not going to fall into that rank. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that everybody knows the Cavaliers are at the top of the NBA in the East, and they are balling out, and 52-10 record. They're not talked about enough. They're going to the championship. They're winning it this year.
there we go, Ohio. Something good. Something good.
Who's on the Cavs? Who do they have right now?
Donovan Mitchell is like the big name that they got, but a lot of the other guys, it's a great team chemistry, right? So Donovan Mitchell, while he's like an all-star dude, you know, I wouldn't say that he's up there with the Stephs or the LeBrons, obviously with the name recognition or anything like that. But I honestly think that's a huge boon and benefit to a team who's just like, they don't have to worry about the media hype, one, because they're in a smaller market, and then two, they don't have everybody hovering around them like those other two organizations that we just mentioned, and they can just like focus on a cohesive team unit and going out there and winning. And I think it's actually just obviously playing out here.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are having a great season, Scott. I'm really happy for you guys. I'm really, really
Thank you.
happy. I know that things aren't going well with the Browns. I also, so this is
Hey.
great. I love. I know some people hate it. I do love when the Celtics and the Knicks are good. I think that's good for the NBA. I do think that that's good. I like
He's
having
spoken like a true Georgetown guy.
Go Hoyas. Okay. So I think it's good for basketball. Oh yeah, on the Celtics, Mikey, do you know who this guy? Did you know Peyton Pritchard, the sixth man?
Oh yeah. He's from West Lynn.
Yeah, sixth man of the
he's a
year.
baller.
He's like really good friends with Kyle Hamper and stuff.
Yeah, he's great. He grew up in West Lynn. Like we ran like all the same circle, all friends in the same social circles. I never knew him. I wasn't really close to him, but like all of my friends were good friends with him.
Yeah.
And thing about him is since eighth grade, he was every day before school, after school training like a maniac. Had an insane training schedule, and just built himself brick by brick. And then went to Oregon, balled out. But he is just has like kind of like that Kobe type of work ethic that he drew inspiration from a really young age. So it's cool. Like everybody knows how hard he worked and what he put in, and now he's getting towards the
Balling out.
top of the league as he continues to
He's
mature.
he scored 40 points the other night. It's like
Yeah.
Yeah, he's incredible.
the Celtics are crazy. The fact that they can have like a guy who's a 6-man scoring those kind of points on any given night. So that's I mean, Scott, I know you're excited about you guys being on top of the East, but watch out.
Leave this up here.
Okay, take it down now. All right, take it down. All right. We have to pivot to football here because some big moves have happened. Starting in Las Vegas, Maxx Crosby has been signed by the Raiders to what I believe makes him the highest paid non-quarterback of all time. So 106.5 million 3-year deal, includes 91.5 guaranteed. Yeah, making him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. So Maxx Crosby, obviously one of the premier, not just pass rushers, but defenders in the entire league. Also, the guy that Luke Musgraves most hated to go against because he's so unpredictable. And we see here. Thoughts on this? Do you like this move for the Raiders?
Yeah. This guy, I mean, he's been very vocal about how much he loves the organization, how much he loves Raider Nation.
Yeah.
And he just looks like a Raider. Anytime you get a white guy with neck tattoos like that, he's going to the Raiders.
It's the only team that he's allowed to be on in the NFL. It's perfectly on brand.
It's a perfect fit.
The NFL's Birdman.
Yeah. I can't. Yeah, true. But the other thing I like about him is like this dude was like a no-star recruit out of high school. And then he went to Eastern Michigan. We always like to
baby.
make fun of directional schools. Eastern Michigan, 4th round pick. It's impressive to even get drafted out of there. And then to build himself up to become the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Also, he's struggled with off the field issues. Like he's been really open about like with substances, alcoholism, and like gone to rehab and like really cleaned himself up. This dude is like all about ball, his family, like he's a dad now, and now being long-term in Las Vegas. I love this for him. And I think that hopefully, I mean, I like this. I like the direction that the Raiders are headed with like Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly. I like what they got going on here. And then just solidifying this piece on field, but also culture piece for that organization.
Yeah, he's definitely a cornerstone of this era of the Raiders. And we were talking about it last episode about Zach Bond and the difference between offensive contracts and defensive player contracts and all that. It's really cool to see somebody that's a non-quarterback and somebody in this position specifically setting that market or breaking that market level.
Right.
You don't usually see a defensive end being the one who gets this, even though their importance to a defensive team is very hard to put into words. It's such a vital part of the defense.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue like, I mean, I would go an edge, a pass rusher, and maybe an elite corner. Like those are kind of the two most difficult positions to get an elite player at. Speaking of Zach Bond, will you throw up this next one where I wrote, my boy got paid? Because as we were talking about last episode, if the Eagles were going to sign him back, and they did. So he was on a 1 year, $3 million contract last year. And obviously then had an all-pro season, Super Bowl winner. He forced a fumble damn near every 10 tackles. It was incredible. $51 million contract on 3 years, $34 million guaranteed. And this is just super inspiring to see, because this was a guy whose career trajectory was not looking anything like this. He was a guy who was a career backup, special teamser, never probably really expecting to make this type of money. And even when you listen to him on some interviews talking about this season going into Philadelphia. Like people asked him, did you expect to have this type of success in Philadelphia? Did you think that you were going to really, take off? And he said, no, I mean, I thought that, I was just come in, play my part, and try and fit into the defense. And he became a superstar. So I love to see this here. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, good for him, man, getting that bag. I always hate how they present these contracts because the upfront money, that $51 million is like, it's kind of fugazi. So like what really matters is the guaranteed money at this point in time. So seeing that he 10x'd from the 3 million that you were saying from the 1 year to 34 is awesome.
It's interesting to see the difference in what the league values positions at. I mean, we look at these are kind of two of the top guys at their position on defense in the league, and one of them makes 3 times the amount of money. And do you guys feel like there is too much of a disparity between positions? Like, is it really, because what this is saying is it is way easier to find a good inside linebacker than it is to find a good edge rusher. What do you guys agree with this? Do you think that this is accurate and that these markets are fair for those positions?
I kind of do. I think finding a good backer is more dependent on the line in front of him the same way a good running back is dependent on the line in front of him versus good end. He can be on an island and just make impact on his own. So I think that it's warranted.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there are generational dudes at the position of linebacker that probably deserve more than even some great defensive ends. But I think on a whole, apples to apples, I would say defensive ends, especially in this day and age when the game is so pass heavy, I think they're so incredibly vital. And yes, you can make the argument, well, linebackers are dropping in the secondary and, coverage and all that kind of stuff. So if they have high skill levels in that position, like that's vital as well. But I think putting pressure on a quarterback in this day and age is so incredibly important. And we just talked about, okay, cornerback and defensive end being the two most important on the field. Like if you get a guy that rushes a quarterback, we all know that when you're rushed, you're making decisions that you otherwise might not because you have just less time to process information. So I hate pitting them up against one another, but I do think that defensive ends, especially good ones, are worth more right now.
I know, and I mean, I'm obviously biased towards linebackers, having played it my whole life, but something about it still bothers me when you're thinking like the way that the game is evolving, those inside linebackers are getting asked to do more and more and have a bigger variety of skill sets, like be able to play the run like a traditional inside linebacker and then be able to play the pass like a safety, just with and be able to be sideline to sideline. Like you look at some of these linebackers nowadays, like it's like a Fred Warner or Zach Bond now, who these guys can play all over the football field. And so I do get it. It's almost like they're kind of generalists sort of in everything, whereas an edge or a defensive end is an extreme specialist at doing this very effective thing. But, it just makes me a little bit sad for my linebackers. I don't know how Zach is going to live on only 34 million guaranteed.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are we talking about? Wealth inequality in the NFL right
now? Should we go here, Scott? Let's do it. All right. No, speaking of inequality, we've been talking about some good franchises. Now let's talk about a sad franchise.
Don't.
Go on this next. Yeah. Right there, clicking on Myles Garrett. So we talked about it. This was a heartbreaking day, Scott, when this happened. I remember we were on recording when the news broke that Myles Garrett was requesting a trade. Apparently, rumors have it the Browns have no interest in trading Myles Garrett. And he has requested another meeting with owner Jimmy Haslam to try and discuss the situation because he has refused to meet with him about it. Scott, as our resident Browns fan, talk to me.
Yeah, this is weird. The NFL is definitely not a player-driven league like the NBA sort of deal. When guys in the NBA demand trades, they usually get it. The Browns don't have an obligation to trade him right now. He's still under contract. It depends on how bad this relationship gets. And this rumor right here, like if it's really this splintered, it probably makes sense to move on from him. But I also get it from a business standpoint. It's like, dude, you're under contract. Do your job. So this is just a very, very weird situation for the Browns, but it's par for the course.
Seems about right. Totally on brand. Total chaos. Yeah, this is like, I mean, at what point does he become like a big distraction, and sort of a cancer in the locker room because he's not getting what he wants and he wants to leave. He does, like when you say, I don't want to be here, and you have to continue being there, but at the same time, yeah, he's under contract. It's like you have to do your job. You signed to play for X amount of years, and so I think this just creates a really weird situation. I mean, if I'm the Browns, do you want to force him to stay? I mean, I feel like it's not desirable necessarily, but you might as well get everything you can for him.
If I was Myles Garrett, I would have such a bad attitude after this. After the owner refuses, you asked to meet, you asked to have a discussion. You goes, "Oh no, I'm busy." I would pout my way through every practice. I'd half-ass everything until I got what I wanted. I mean, how does he expect him to react? I understand he's under contract. He's like, Garrett, do your job, but like, I would have a bad attitude. I'd let it permeate. I'd show him how low I can go.
I bet you would.
Yeah, dude, it's such a weird position because he could really sabotage the locker room. I don't think Myles is that kind of guy to do that.
No, I'm just saying, like, I'd have a bad attitude a little bit.
Yeah. It's
sorry, I think Myles himself is actually a great guy and is a great personality and is a cornerstone of that culture there. But it's like at some point he's going to sour.
Yeah. At some point he's definitely going to sour, and I think Mikey's right. The more avoidance that Haslam continues to show this situation and toward Myles, the faster that's going to happen. Terrible way of putting it, but like this is just. There's so many problems going on with the locker room and the organization right now that I bet you even Haslam's like, I can't deal with this right now. Like he's probably
like, dude, you're an owner of a sports franchise. Like, how is it the way to do business? Like, just meet with the guy and like clarify, like, hey, we can't trade you right now. We just can't. Here, please give us one more year of everything you got, and then we'll work with you to get you somewhere where you want to be in a year, what have you. Like,
far be it for me to come to the defense of Haslam, but at the same time, what more can you say if he's already said that to Myles? Like, dude, I know you're going to come and try and talk me into trading you, but I've already told you, as has Barry, the GM, that we are not interested in doing that. So either you have to get that in your head and decide what your personal approach is going to be, or there's no further conversation to be had.
Yeah, fair. Just watch Myles Garrett end up on the Eagles. Like,
probably
is going to get him,
or the Commanders. I heard that's more of a landing spot for him, or a desired landing spot. Or it seems like everybody wants to go there now after one good year. But
1 year it'll make you hot. Speaking of another guy that wants to leave, will you throw up this next one, Scott, of DK Metcalf? He has also requested a trade. The two-time Pro Bowler, been with Seattle his whole career. He has requested a trade. Seahawks also cut Tyler Lockett. So like two long-standing Seattle Seahawks wide receivers gone, or presumably gone if they do end up trading DK. And I've been hearing a lot of rumors about where it might be interesting. We were talking about Devontae and maybe the Chargers. Well, the Chargers have presumably a lot of money to spend on wide receiver. I do think you guys remember that play where DK chased down the dude who picked off the pass 100 yards.
Oh yeah,
tackled him. I wish we had it right here. One of the best effort plays that we've seen in the NFL in the last 10 or 15 years. I bet you Jim Harbaugh has watched that 1,000 times. Be like, this is the type of effort guy I want on my team. I could see the Chargers going after DK. What do you think?
I think that makes sense. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. You talked about the Chargers they actually did free up, because I mentioned in the last episode that they need to re-sign either Bosa or Khalil Mack or figure something out there. And they just announced yesterday that they're releasing Bosa. So that frees up $36.5 million in their cap for next year. So there is an opportunity to potentially go and get a mercenary like DK and really shore up their receiver room, which for all intents and purposes outperformed what their expectation was last year. But if they can get somebody that Herbert can dish the ball to, that's huge. And to your point, his effort, DK, while he may be a little bit more like outspoken in his character and everything like that, he does show some serious drive on the field, and it's hard to deny that. So I think it would be a good addition to the Chargers.
The biggest hater of DK Metcalf in the entire country of the United States is our dad, right, Mikey?
Yeah.
He's a Seahawks fan. He grew up in Seattle. And he is always yelling at the TV about DK Metcalf going half-ass, not finishing his routes. And you know what? There actually is a lot to that. Like sometimes DK is playing his ass off, like that one play. And then like 40% of the time, he's just lollygagging. So I think that our dad would not be happy to see him, or maybe he would be happy to see him get out of the Seahawks.
Well, when you have a play like that went viral and you're praised for your effort, you can coast off of that reputation for a while. People remember you as, oh, he's a high effort guy.
True. I take back what I said about Jim Harbaugh watching that play and wanting him on the Chargers, because actually, Mikey, you're right. I think that I've been duped. It's propaganda. The DK Metcalf is a high effort guy. That one play, masterful propaganda. He's been coaching off that, and Jim Harbaugh would actually see right through that. He wants a guy that's hustling and grinding every single play, not one big flashy highlight hustle play, but all those hustle grinder plays that don't get to be on SportsCenter top 10.
I agree. A lot of coaches and a lot of scouts fall victim to, one little media cycle of a play or a clip and go, oh, he's this guy. And then we'll take that
all the time
and make decisions off of that because they're too lazy to actually do the research.
That's true. I do think that this happens quite a bit. I think this happens a bunch in like high school recruiting also, of like, oh, they offered him. Okay, we're going to offer him too. It's just like,
oh yeah, that's the biggest thing.
The pile on.
The pile on.
Oh, you got 100 rolls of toilet paper? I'm going to get 200.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden there's no toilet paper at Costco. Gosh. Speaking of high school recruiting. Okay. Oh, never mind. You know what? No, I don't have it. Oh, no, I do have it. Okay. Sorry. Speaking of high school recruiting, last thing, I just want to hit on, because I like to always talk about college football. I like to complain. Scott, will you throw this up? This is going to continue to be a problem. I just want to complain about the new era of college football, as I love to do. So there's a tweet that says, I don't know a good solution, but the problem high school kids are going through now to have a chance to play college football is due to 7th, 8th, and 9th year seniors, and this has got to get fixed. This is funny on the surface, but it's actually a thing. And you're seeing more and more of this, of like guys staying in college football longer and longer. The NCAA kind of opening the floodgates. We've seen them award all of these really extreme eligibility cases that you got 8 years previously. And then with the NIL, we're seeing more college players stay in college. Like if they have a chance, okay, I'm going to be a starter at a SEC team and make $750,000 in NIL. Why would I declare for the draft if I'm going to be like a 7th round draft pick and maybe make the practice squad? So we're seeing guys stay in college a little bit longer. And then more and more colleges are going for transfers or JUCO guys. And so I would not want to be a high school football player right now trying to get recruited into college. What do you think?
Yeah, honestly, I don't want to ever have to go through that process again, and I'm glad I don't, because that was such a stressful time, even in the during our up and coming, Nick. So much less connectivity, and you would literally have to write snail mail letters to coaches, drop 1,000 DVDs into a pouch and shoot them off and into the void, and hoping that they arrived and somebody would actually take the effort to put it into a DVD player and watch, and so on and so forth, as opposed to just clicking a link or going to a website or something like that. So I'm glad we're not going through that, but this is a whole nother issue that's definitely going to increase in its problematic nature. So what we were talking about last episode is like treating treating the actual cause of all of these symptoms, which is the NIL. And I know the NCAA has given many, many years to many players over the course of its existence, to like extra years due to injury and all that kind of stuff. But now it's getting to a point of absurdity. Like I forget what, but Cam Rising is in his 8th year in college at Utah. Like, come on, man. This is it's time to move on. And I'm really curious, like looking down here, if I pop this back up, there's the guy who commented down here saying that only 400 less or 400 fewer. I hate it when people say less when it's fewer. 400 fewer high school players signed scholarships in Division I in 2024 than they did in 2020 or in 2018. 400 doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about Division I players, there aren't many. Like, people don't understand the percentage that actually get to go on to play Division I, either single A or double A. It is tiny compared to the amount of high school players out there that are available to go into the next level.
Dude, it's absolutely tiny. I mean, how many Division I colleges are there in football? 125, something like that. And say, what do you have? I don't know how many scholarships you have on each team, but it's 400 is still a substantial number. We're talking about individual high school kids who are dreaming of playing college football. Like, we remember going through that process recruiting. It's like, and if you're not like a high-end recruit and you have to do a lot of the legwork yourself, like it's a demanding process. I remember that, like, Mike at Hotchkiss, Scott, that's our boarding school in Connecticut, and dialing all these coaches from my phone in the dorm room there and sending all the DVDs out and just hoping and praying. Scott, one time I came to Yale when I was visiting you because I wanted to try and meet with the coaches, and I went in there, and the coach was in there, and I was trying to meet with him. I was sitting outside his office, and he wouldn't meet with me. He just said, no, I'm not going to meet with you. And I was just like, I came all the way here from Connecticut. I'm only here one time. It's the only time I can come. He had no interest in me. So
do you remember who?
I can't remember which coach it was, but I remember being infuriated at it, which is I always had an extra spark when we played you guys then because of that.
Oh man.
Did you put anything in your shoes to be taller? That was a mistake.
No, I did. I used to always put like an extra pair of socks rolled up in my heel so that I would be taller when I talked to the coaches. All right, so we'll see what happens. But I just wanted to fit in one complaint about NIL and how college football is getting disintegrated. I think we survived, you guys. My voice gave out, and I only sounded like I was going to cry one time. But we survived the episode. We had some good stuff. Did you guys have fun?
I had a good time. I'm going to wash my hands because I don't know what came through your microphone, through my earbuds. I don't know what germs, but
everybody sanitize your hands after listening to this one. Otherwise, you're going to have really low heart rate variability and really high skin temperature when you wake up tomorrow.
Translucent skin syndrome.
Translucent skin. All right. There we go. Good stuff. And we'll be back on Monday.